Never in history has an election year swelled to a fever pitch as much as it has in 2020. And I don't think that's an exaggeration either. And in fact, I think it's the perfect way to describe it because at its core, the term fever pitch is defined as a state of intense emotion, excitement, or agitation. I mean, if we had to define 2020 as a whole, it would be the year of intense emotion and excitement and agitation, right? I mean, between COVID-19, racial tension like we haven't seen in decades, the toxic social media battles, and now this vitriolic political cycle, we've lived it all together, one story at a time. And none of it is fiction. And at the crest of wave after wave of news stories, we as Americans have front row seats and an active role to play in one of the most polarizing presidential elections in U.S. history. It has literally been a tsunami of emotion and excitement and agitation on both sides, a fever pitch that all culminates on November 3rd as Americans decide who they want to lead this country and which direction all of us will be taken over the next 4 years. But of all the headlines in the media and all the news notifications on our phone and all the agendas vying for your attention and mine, I'm going to give you some breaking news that blows them all away. Because on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, nothing changes. In fact, on Wednesday morning, November 4th, when you and I wake up in the morning and after we've all gone to the polls, nothing changes. January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day, nothing changes. That's regardless of who wins. Does that sound crazy? Right? Naive, maybe a little too hopeful? Well, stick around because I'm going to tell you why I say that and why I'm unshakably confident when I say it and why you can be too. Hey, it's Adam Simon with Responding to the Call. I'm here to encourage you every week in your faith, family, and finances from a biblical perspective. And if you're new here or you get value out of this in any way, make sure you hit subscribe and then click that notification bell so you never miss new videos like this. And it's always the highest compliment to get a thumbs up. So click on that and let's get into it. Okay, so I've largely stayed out of the fray of the political arena, especially over the past few months. And I plan to continue that pattern because honestly, no matter who you vote for in November, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, nothing changes. And if you think that sounds outrageous and borderline crazy, I'm going to pose this question to you. What actually changes? I mean, I actually want you to think about this. I want you to take your time with it. Like make a list and write it down if you need to. Now, I'm not naive, and I know you're going to have things on your list like the election of the Supreme Court justices, or liberal or conservative agendas advancing, depending on who wins, or jobs, or the economy, or foreign policy, or 1,000 other things. Yet with all of those things on the list, whatever they are and however long or short it is, my question to you is this. In the end, when all's said and done, did anything at all that you personally are called by God to do actually change? Let me ask it another way. Because of the outcome of this election, will one single promise that God has made since the foundation of the world fail? Or will anything that Jesus Christ said, did, or called us to do be nullified? No, not a single one. Because in reality, all that potentially changes is the name on the door of the Oval Office, or not. Because either way, and this is my point, the call on your life and the call on my life is still the same on Inauguration Day as it was when we woke up in November to go to the polls. It's the call to put Christ first in our lives, right? Not our party or our candidate or our agenda. It's the call to choose faith in what's true over fear of what might be. The call to be an ambassador, a light, a joy-filled representative of Christ wherever you're at, regardless of who you voted for. It's the call to carry the message of reconciliation in Christ because we can be reconciled to each other and we can be civil and love each other despite having different beliefs and political views. It's the call to share a message of hope and peace and forgiveness with everyone around us. It's the call to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, all of our neighbors. Even the ones who believe differently and feel way differently about the issues than we do. It's the call to be wise and make the best use of the time. To let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, always being ready to give an answer for the hope that's inside of you, yet doing it with gentleness and respect. That's the life we're called to, regardless of who wins or who's in office. That's true this year, next year, and in 50 years. Now, is it possible that the cultural landscape we've known all of our lives is going to be affected by this election? Absolutely, that's for sure, right? And could some of the freedoms that we've enjoyed be encroached upon? Yeah, you better believe it. But again, I'm going to ask, how does that actually change anything that I just said? Right? It might be uncomfortable, but in what era of history did any true Christ follower ever have it comfortable? let alone easy. Because in nearly every time period since the time of Christ, God's people have been either persecuted or threatened or outcast from the prevailing culture. I mean, yes, some periods were worse than others, but in nearly every century, the empire or the regime or the government under which they lived was against them. And they put into place decrees and laws and policies that are antithetical to the faith that we're called to live by. And in all of these time periods, in the midst of what some would call dark, evil days, the number of people who called themselves Christians or followers of Christ absolutely exploded. But why? Because they knew a secret. They knew a kingdom secret. They knew that this was not their ultimate home. And they knew that their ultimate allegiance wasn't to an emperor or a king or a president or their country or their homeland. It was to Jesus Christ. And they suffered for it. But even in the midst of that, Jesus himself said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And I want you to hear me here. Even in 2020, he's still building it because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change like shifting shadows. And no matter who's in office, his love for the lost, the confused, the weary, the broken, the emotional, the excited, and the agitated, it's as white hot today as it was 2,000 years ago. And by the way, all of us fit into one of those categories. And he's still pursuing hearts on every continent, in every country, in every area of the world, including yours and including mine. So stop worrying about the one who's going to win the election and start worrying about the one you've already elected to lead your life. Because God is sovereign. He's in complete control no matter who reigns or what regime is in power. He always has and he always will for all of eternity. He's been in control. Even before this country was even a thought in the mind of the founding fathers, God has been in control. Since 1776, he's been in control. Since April 30th, 1789, when our very first president took oath in office, he's been in control. And on January 20th, 2021, no matter whom steps in the Oval Office, he remains in control. Doesn't matter if it's the 45th president, the 46th president, or the 450th president, because the one sovereign God, the creator, the ultimate king and authority over all governments is and will continue to be and will always be in control, and nothing changes. So to finish this out, I want to give you 5 scriptures that you can take with you as you trust God at the polls this November. The first is in Daniel chapter 2, verse 20 and 21. It says, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and he sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. The times and seasons are in his hands, and so are the nations of the world and the leaders placed over them." The second is Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1, which says, "The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he will." Because no matter who's in power or who's in control over a nation, God can turn and steer the outcome of their decision to serve his ultimate purpose in the world, even if we don't understand it at the time. Which leads me to the third verse, Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9. God says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." So even when it's confusing or we don't understand it, God promises right here that we can trust his ways no matter what. He's got a plan, even if we can't see it at the time. And that leans into the fourth verse, which is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, where it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and don't lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your steps." The last verse is Proverbs chapter 16, verse 33, which says, "The lot is cast into the lap, but that every decision is from the Lord." Another version says, "Make your motions and cast your votes, but God has the final say." This just goes to show that even in the seemingly random events of life, even those fall under the umbrella of God's providence. Because we get to vote, but the decision and the outcome is in God's hands. So be informed and be wise, and yes, get out and vote for the candidate that you personally feel best suits your personal interests and beliefs and your principles, as well as our nation's. That's your constitutional right, and you have an obligation to do so. That's what makes this country great. But please don't walk away from the polls without hope. Trust that God's in control and that he does have a plan for your life and for my life, for our nation, and for the entire world. So thanks so much for watching and spending some time with me this week. I really hope this encouraged you as you keep your eyes and your heart on Christ and as you head to the polls this November. Do me a favor, leave me a comment. Let me know which verse encouraged you the most, and then share this video with someone you know who might need to hear it. See you in the next video.